Hello, everybody. This is Galia coming to you live on Facebook again. This time up instead of sideways, so that's already an improvement, hopefully, from the last time. Um, while we're waiting for people to start signing in, I can do a little introduction about me and ABL. So, my name is Galia Aharoni. I am the founding attorney at Aharoni Business Law, based in Oakland, California, but we can represent people throughout California and the area. So we basically are what I call outside in-house counsel for small businesses. So that kind of means anything that comes up in the course of your business, deciding what business entity to be and helping you start up entity, but also growing your company, adding employees, trademarks, something as well. So anything related to your business, we can do for you. I have a lot of clients who have had who have started a company online or used some online tools to help their business grow, help documents for their business, and sometimes that has created some confusion or some issues down the road. So because it's something that comes up a lot in my business, it's something I thought could be useful to talk about today. Just talk about how these online tools can be utilized to the max, but also know when to go talk to a lawyer instead. So online legal tools can be really, really great and helpful. It's awesome that legal information and legal services are a lot more accessible to a lot more people. They can save you some money as well, but there's also some potential downsides that it can be easier to make some mistakes, sometimes big mistakes, and those mistakes can sometimes lead to costing even more money and more time down the road. So we're going to talk about how and when to use them versus, how to know when to go to talk to a lawyer instead. So the main ones we're going to talk about today are Nolo, Legal Shield, Rocket Lawyer, and LegalZoom. We're just going to go through them one by one, and I'll talk about pros and cons and how to use each of them. So there's a bunch of different tools to use online. I'm just talking about these ones because they're some of the most popular online right now. And of course, disclaimer up front, I'm not trying to say anything bad about any of these companies. I think all of them can be really helpful for people, but I just want to make sure that you know how to use them correctly so it doesn't create more problems for you down the road. And also, obviously, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, so I'm not shilling for anybody or saying pros and cons either way. I just want to give you information. So we can jump right in. First one I wanted to talk about was Nolo Press. So that's Nolo. They're at nolo.com. And Nolo, I refer my current clients and potential clients to Nolo all the time. I think they're a really great resource for people. Basically, what Nolo does is kind of do-it-yourself legal information. So they publish books, they publish software, and they also do provide a directory of attorneys who have paid for placement on the website for you to connect with lawyers. So they one really nice thing about Nolo is that all of the information is written for non-lawyers. They're really created to be accessible to people who don't have any prior knowledge in the subject that you're going to be learning about. They also provide some fillable forms, especially, if you buy a book, they'll usually include a bunch of forms that have blanks that you can just kind of fill out. Pricing wise, it's really cheap. A book I think will cost maybe between 20 and 40 bucks. Software is also pretty cheap. And it's just really, really good that it's so easy to understand. It gives you a really good background. And they have a pretty good variety of topics as well. So there's lots of business and employment issues, but there's also estate planning and trademarks and family law and kind of all over. Their website also includes a bunch of free information too if you don't want to buy a whole book or buy the software. And most of the books I've found are available at the library as well. So if you want to just go check out a book for free, you can also do that. One of the downsides of Nolo is that most of the information is not state specific. They do have a couple of state specific books for California and for other big states, I think. But generally, you're going to get more of a general overview of the topic, and you might not be getting the state specific rules about the things that you are trying to learn about. So that might cause you to miss something by accident. if you're not reading something state specific. And the other con, is, which is also a pro in some way, is that it's very simple, and it's very surface level. So on the one hand, that's really good because it's easy to understand, and it gives you just a basic overview, so you can understand the main issues. But if you have anything that requires any complexity, it might not give you the depth of information that you need. So especially if you have a complex business or a complex issue going on, that might cause some problems. And also, if you're just going to be using the forms from Nolo, they're just not very customizable without knowing what you're doing. So a lot of the forms aren't necessarily going to cover all of the different aspects of your business. So I think Nolo is really great to educate yourself before you talk to a lawyer. It's a great resource for learning about tax issues, employment law basics, corporate formalities, just all of these things to, figure out the basics about how to run your business and how to keep it in compliance, and how to treat your employees and have the basic understanding of your obligations as an employer and as a business. Other than business law and employment law, I think Nolo is okay for also simple wills. If it's just, you and a spouse and you maybe have a house and some money in the bank, but maybe not a lot of assets. It can be, I think the wills on there are an okay decision if you don't want to pay a lawyer to do that simple will for you. I would still recommend if you do a will via Nolo, you still have a lawyer look at it just to make sure everything is in compliance, especially for your state. I would not recommend using it for just try to self-patent anything. I would recommend never trying to do patents yourself. It can be, for things like divorces and patents and trademarks, I think it can be really good for educating yourself to go find a lawyer afterwards. But those things tend to be kind of too complex to try and do yourself, I recommend. So what I recommend using Nolo for mostly is as a starting point. And as a starting point for documents as well. So, for example, I've definitely had clients who came into my office who, for example, one who was selling his small business to his employee. And before he came into my office to talk about it, he had read the entire Nolo book about buying and selling a business. It was really helpful because I knew that he already had a basic understanding of what needed to happen, and it made the whole entire process go a lot more quickly. And on the flip side, he was able to vet me a little bit better and make sure that I knew what to do in that situation to help him. So that's about Nolo. Again, I think Nolo is a really great resource for information for non-lawyers. So the next one I wanted to talk about was Legal Shield. So Legal Shield's different than Nolo. It's a prepaid legal service where you pay a flat fee per month and you get a certain amount of hours of a lawyer's time in exchange. So they do things like provide consultations with lawyers, reviewing simple documents, writing simple letters. I think they even do a little limited amount of trial work if you need it. If you need extra outside of your plan, they give you discounted hourly rates for everything else. And it's pretty cheap. I think last I checked was about $39 a month. So Legal Shield can be really awesome to provide easy and cheap access to a lawyer. Sometimes Legal Shield is offered as an employee benefit. So, an employee will be just given a plan as part of, their employment at a company, which can be awesome and I think a really great benefit to the employee. So it can be really good for things just like a quick kind of cheap cursory document review. If you wanted a lawyer to, just quickly look over a lease or a simple contract that is not very contested and you don't think there's very big issues, can be helpful to if you just want some lawyer's eyes on it. It can also be good for writing good first drafts of simple documents that you need, or, like a letter to somebody. It can be really helpful. It can also just be good for if you have a lawyer, but you don't know whether whatever issue you have is kind of ripe to, go talk to your lawyer instead. If it's going to be worth the money to go, talk to your lawyer about it, might be a good place to just check in and see if it seems like it's too complex for Legal Shields, and then a good time to go talk to your in-person lawyer instead. So the bad part about this is it's sort of the scheme the way that Legal Shield is set up is that, they're sort of going to be encouraging the upsell all the time. They're very eager to add lawyers. They're very eager to add clients. And I personally and my clients some discomfort sometimes in just how eager they can be to try and get new lawyers involved and new customers involved. So you might just have to sit through the little bit of upsell and beware, trying to get them to trying to get you to buy things you don't necessarily need. And again, it's just kind of good for simple documents, and you don't get a ton of time. So it's better for things that aren't super in depth. So if you have a very complex contract or you need a complex document written, it's probably not going to be your best bet. You also, are going to have less opportunity to vet the lawyers you're working with, and you don't necessarily know the experience level or the quality of the lawyer who's going to be doing the work for you. And you're still kind of getting these forms and kind of cursory surface level treatment, which can be good for some situations. But again, if you need something customizable, it might not be the best thing to do in your situation. It also, is sort of like insurance where you're going to have certain things that are included in your plan and certain things that aren't. So there might be situations where the thing you actually need them to do is not in your plan and you're going to have to pay extra. So I have clients who have Legal Shield in addition to having me on retainer with them. And it can be, a really good, it can be very complimentary. So, just because you have one doesn't mean you can't benefit from the other. Often they will, if they just keep down or just want something looked at really quickly that's not really, where there's not a lot at stake, they'll send it to Legal Shield first before coming to me. Okay, so that's Legal Shield. Next, I'm going to talk a couple minutes about Rocket Lawyer. So Rocket Lawyer is a little bit different as well. They've got an online attorney network, kind of almost social media site where you can go online and ask a question, and lawyers will go online and respond to your question to the best of their ability with whatever information you've given them. Rocket Lawyer also provides, again, these fillable templates. You can go online, find the template you want, and just fill in the blanks, and then it's automatically created there for you. And I think they do some document filing as well. They, I believe, both have a subscription model, and you can also just buy these documents a la carte one by one as you need them. So again, this can be really good to get cheap or free access to lawyers for just super quick, basic questions. It can be a really good way to figure out whether whatever issue you're dealing with is big enough to go find a lawyer. And it can be good for, again, these simple documents that you might need if you know exactly what type of documents you already need. The downside is that you don't know these lawyers who are answering your questions. Sometimes you'll get contradictory answers. Also, the lawyers could be coming from different states and might have backgrounds in different states' laws. So you don't always know if the answers you're getting are correct answers or the best answer for you. And also the lawyers are operating on very limited information because they just have a few sentences from you instead of, an hour-long sit-down like I would have with a new client in person. So it's sort of like, going on WebMD and diagnosing yourself with a medical condition online. It can be a helpful tool to sort of narrow things down and get basic information, but you're still going to want to go to the doctor, even if even if you feel like you have a couple ideas of how to go forward. So same thing might be a good starting place, but always a good idea to create an attorney-client relationship with somebody and have more specific information aimed at you. So another problem with these sort of template forms is that it might be difficult to actually figure out what documents you even need to begin with. Again, the templates aren't super customizable, so you might accidentally miss something if you're just doing it by yourself. Again, you could try to also just create the template and then bring it to a lawyer to make sure you're not missing anything. And also, you do have the opportunity to connect with lawyers, I believe, through Rocket Lawyer. But again, these sites are set up where the lawyers are trying to outbid each other and just trying to get the clients and promote themselves. So, just be careful that you still do a thorough vetting of any lawyers you start to work with, that you found via Rocket Lawyer, because to the lawyers it's an opportunity to advertise themselves. So you still need to do your due diligence, and just because the lawyer's on Rocket Lawyer doesn't mean they're a good fit for you. So just be wary about that. So finally, I'm going to talk about LegalZoom, which is a very, very popular website right now. And it's providing a lot of really good, very accessible forms and simple services to people. So they, again, provide these sort of forms that you can fill out yourself if you need certain contracts, things like that. They'll also do filings like I think they'll file a trademark for you. They also do, can file your articles if you're going to be creating a corporation or an LLC. So the most I see my clients using LegalZoom for is forming their entity. So that seems to be a pretty popular LegalZoom service. Pricing is a la carte depending on what services you buy. And it can be very, very good for creating very simple documents, again, kind of across the board. But I have become wary of LegalZoom because I have seen a lot of problems with my own clients coming into the door. So one of the most common problems I've found is that, people can go on to LegalZoom and start a corporation or start an LLC, for example, but they aren't necessarily given guidance first about whether their business should even be an LLC or be a corporation. I have had clients come into my office who created a corporation, and probably I would have recommended an LLC for them. And so, you can end up accidentally choosing an entity type that is not necessarily the best entity for your company. And it's not impossible to fix, but, it can cost money and time, so better to pick an entity that's best for your business at the beginning, and avoid the stress. So that's one issue I see with LegalZoom, is that people pick the wrong entity or don't know what entity to pick. Another issue I have seen is that people will start a corporation, for example, and not realize, because they've done it on LegalZoom, that they have not completed the process. They'll, have their articles filed, and LegalZoom will send them a stack of, blank templates, and then those blank templates, such as their bylaws, will go unsigned, and they don't know that they're supposed to do, a meeting of the board of directors or a meeting of the shareholders, and they will never know that that they were supposed to be doing that the entire time, and didn't know anything about the corporate formalities they were supposed to do. So I've had people come into my office, they've had a corporation for 3 years or more that they created on LegalZoom, and never signed the bylaws, never issued shares, never did any of the things that actually would have completed the formation process, that are kind of key things that you're supposed to do when you're starting a business. So when you're just kind of doing this on LegalZoom because it's there, you don't realize that there's all of these other things that you're supposed to be doing. The flip side of that is LegalZoom, of course, would like you to, put add-ons onto the packages that you're buying. So sometimes it can be kind of clear when you're on LegalZoom, kind of unclear what products are sort of necessary to the process and what products are not necessary. So they'll kind of try to sweeten the deal and throw in things that you may not need to pay LegalZoom to do for you, that they're either not necessary for your business, or they're things that would be free for you to do by yourself, or just much cheaper to do on your own. So again, it's just kind of a lack of information about what's necessary, what's not necessary, and what you need to do. So you might end up paying for more things than you need and make it more expensive than it would have been, because you don't know what's parts of the steps are necessary. And finally, well, two other things, actually. I've had a client even come into my office believing that they had created an LLC already a few years ago in Nevada, and turned out that they never had created the entity. They started the process in LegalZoom, never finished the process in LegalZoom. They thought it had been done, and they thought they had an LLC for a while, and turned out they never even had an LLC. So again, just making sure that you're doing all the steps that are necessary for your business. It can be difficult without an expert to help you make sure you're doing all of the steps that you personally need to do. And the other so basically all of those are just kind of about unintended consequences in using LegalZoom. So I think it can be really helpful for those things if you know what you need already. But if you don't already know what you need, there can be unintended consequences there. Another big issue I see with my clients is it sort of provides this illusion of protection, which you don't always find out until it's too late that you're not as protected as you think you are. So we've had some people come into our office who, I think one good example is they created a partnership agreement on LegalZoom between I think there were three owners of this company, and they had a partnership agreement. They thought it was all set. One of the partners, two of the partners were having an issue with the third partner, and they wanted to find a way to remove that partner. If they had created a partnership agreement with an attorney, the attorney would have made sure to have a provision in there about how to remove a partner if they don't want to be removed. But the LegalZoom version did not have that, and they were ending up in a position where they were unable to remove that partner against his will without going to court. It ended up being way more costly than it would have been to just go to a lawyer and have that one clause put in there about how to remove somebody involuntarily. So things like, again, these documents can be really helpful, but for complicated things like an operating agreement or a partnership agreement or things like that, just be careful because there may be you may not be protected as you think you are. Again, I do think LegalZoom can be really helpful for if you already know what you need. So if you've already educated, if you've done your research, if you maybe have talked to a lawyer and you know that an LLC is good for your business and you know exactly the documents that you need to create an LLC and you feel comfortable, taking the risk and doing it yourself, then go ahead and do that. Or if you want to do that and then you bring your documents to a lawyer to just review, also fine. But I personally feel like if you're not already an expert in a lot of these documents and filings that happen on LegalZoom, that it's just, better safe than sorry, and talk to an expert to make sure that you're not missing anything. So in general, all of these kind of online tools, I think, are most useful for educating yourself. I think there's so much great information online that is aimed at non-lawyers, and now non-lawyers have access to to learn about all of these things that they did not have access to that information before. So if you're a small business owner, I hope that you are eager to learn about all aspects of your business and want to know about the basics of the law. And it's really great to learn about things like what type of entity your business should be. And it can help you then identify what questions to ask your lawyer and puts you in a better position to know the basics. So when you do go talk to a lawyer, you're better equipped to tell if the lawyer is a good one. You can ask them good questions. You can make sure that they know the information that you know, and are able to give you specific tailored advice. I would say use with caution for things like really simple documents, like super simple wills. If you have a really easy prenup you want to do, maybe super basic employment documents, like maybe some onboarding documents, like an at-will letter, things like that. Use with caution for incorporating a business, as long as you know already what type of business you should be and what all of the different steps you need to take in order to start the business and keep the business in compliance. And I think it could also be, these tools can be okay for just a basic trademark name search as well. If you want to be trademarking a logo or name, I do recommend hiring an expert for the in-depth trademark search because we have the experience and tools to do a deeper search and make sure that nothing is being missed. But a basic kind of first round trademark search I think is okay. But again, do all of these things with caution and make sure you do your research and you have, you feel like you're comfortable and have enough information to go forward so you don't accidentally miss something or you don't accidentally buy something you don't need and you don't get bad advice. I would recommend not using any of these tools without guidance for anything really that's complex. So always go to a patent lawyer if you want to patent something. Most of them, I think, give, free or cheap consultations. If you don't even know whether something is patentable, you can go in and they'll give you some advice about whether, you can try and go forward. Trademarks, if you want to, I recommend hiring an expert for trademarks, especially the deep search. But things like registering a copyright or getting your federal employer ID number, those things are just, you can easily do yourself. And there's just kind of a ripoff to pay one of these online tools to do it for you. I recommend only hiring an expert to write things like your operating agreement, your bylaws, your partnership agreements for your business, because these things get very complicated and every business is different. Every, configuration of partners is different. Every relationship between the partner is different. So I highly recommend making sure those are tailored to you and your specific business, and not just getting a template online for that. If you're going to be selling your business or merging your business with another one or moving states, that can be very complex and also differs a lot by your business and by, what the facts of the specific case. So I would definitely recommend read the book about it, but have a lawyer help you. If you have any contracts that are complex, if you have a complex will or trust you want to set up, I recommend getting an expert for that. And also, again, things like divorces or immigration issues, really good to use the resources for educating yourself. But those are things that can get very complicated if you try and do it on your own and might end up being more expensive in the long run trying to do it on your own because you're saving money. So basically, to wrap up, these tools can be really, really amazing tools for educating yourself. But, just if you want to do something on your own, just proceed with caution. Make sure to educate yourself first, and know when it's time to hire an expert, because hiring a lawyer, hiring a CPA can end up saving you a lot of money down the road. In preventing the problems from happening instead of having to clean it up once it does happen. Do use online referral services with caution as well. They can be a really great tool to find lawyers, but make sure to have your consultations with them, get a feel for them, make sure to look each of them up online, make sure they have good experience in what you're doing, have an online presence, and make sure you're comfortable with them as a good fit, and don't just assume that because they're listed on this website that they're a good lawyer. As far as ABL goes, we specialize in what we call preventative law. These issues, we'd much rather work with you at the very beginning to prevent all of these issues that come up later. I'd much rather help you, choose the right entity now instead of switching entities for you later because you accidentally picked the wrong one on LegalZoom. So, we provide all of, many of these services, anything related to business law throughout the course of your business. And we also provide subscription plans. So if you want a lawyer just on hand for whatever issues come up with your business as they come up, we also provide monthly service subscription plans for that as well. So you always have access to a lawyer to ask your questions to, and we can help educate you on these issues. So Juliet put a link on the comments here about our next event. In January, we're going to have a live in-person event in Oakland at our space in Jack London Square. So more information online at that link, but that one we're going to be talking about all of the, we're going to be talking about HR and employment law. So, there's employment law is constantly changing. There were a lot of changes to the law that are happening and starting in, earlier mid 2017. So we're going to be going over all of the major changes to the law that employers need to know, and also just giving some basic primers about employment law as well. And then in February, we're going to be doing an in-person live event about nonprofits, kind of just Nonprofits 101, how to start and run a nonprofit. So stay tuned. We're also going to be doing more of these live events. I think January, February, maybe we'll do a couple that just have snippets of the in-person events we're going to do. So stay tuned. The best way to get information about these is to follow our Aharoni Business Law Facebook page. And also you can sign up for our newsletter where we will blast you just once a month with all of the upcoming events. And we also put in there, any major changes of the law that you should be aware about. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. And hopefully I will see you next month. And stay tuned. Bye.